Now! No nukes! Now!
What do we want?
No nukes!
When do we want it?
Now!
All right. At some point, make it over these tables and sign this letter to the governor and buy a t-shirt.
Hey, Ray. How are you? Good to see you.
The man.
Just last look around every place feels like a familiar. Now they're gonna find out what it's really all about when the citizens unite. The world is gonna know it when Mama gears up for a fight. Everyone know it when Mama gears up for a fight. You bet they're gonna hear it when Mama gears up for a fight. Alright. Thanks a lot, everybody. Enjoy. No nukes.
Hey, thank you, Charlie. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Who will speak for the earth today? Who will speak for the children? Who will speak for the generations to come? My grandfather, Chief Orrin Lyons, asked that question some time ago, and it hasn't been answered in a good way, in a hard way yet. So it's up to us to speak for the earth here today. I'd like to introduce my brother, Mel Vernon of the San Luis Rey Mission Band of Indians, to start this in a traditional way.
I'm Mel Vernon from the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians, a little ways down the way in Oceanside. I'd like to acknowledge the territory that we are on. The Hahashiman, the Juaneño group, and they were going to be here today. I don't see them arriving right now, but to get this event moving, I'd just like to thank everyone for being here, and it's an honor for me to be here to speak. I'd like to say that it's a beautiful event, starting off with music, and on the way here, the Beatles were playing in my head, Here Comes the Sun, too, so there's something to be said about. I don't know who has the music playing in their head, what songs they hear, but it's something that's very comforting, I guess, to ourselves, and connects us with our heart, our feelings. I'd just like to say a short prayer and acknowledgement of what we're doing today, to start it off in a positive way, because what we're looking for is a positive beginning, and we're looking for a positive answer to this challenge that we're faced. Grandfather, look down on our people here today, our family, taking care of our family. That's what we're here today to do. Open our hearts and our minds to the answers, and to the people that will share the answer to those hard questions that we're going to hear today. Help us to connect with our Mother Earth and all the creatures of Mother Earth that are here today that we're going to help preserve along the way. I know some kind of gets reversed. I think we're trying to save the planet, but the planet is the only place that can save us. Help us find those answers to those challenges that we have for energy. Give us safe passage home. And let us bring us all to the next event, help us to our journey for the solution of this challenge. I hope. Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good day. It's beautiful. Yes.
And my name's Libby Halevi. I am the producer and host of Nuclear Hot Seat podcast, and you'll be hearing a little bit more about my personal story later today because I'm also one of the speakers. But right now what I would like to do is bring up one of our political allies in this battle. Larry Agron is a council member with the city of Irvine, which just last week came out against San Onofre, and we're going to hear it directly from a source now. Larry Agron.
Well, thank you all. Thank you so much for being here. I've been in political life for many years now. In fact, I can remember when reactors 2 and 3 were opened, and when many of us expressed grave concerns leading up to that. The fact that so many people are here reminds me of something I long ago learned in politics, especially when I'm so disappointed so often in my colleagues, whether it's at the local level, the state level, or the national level. Those of us who serve in politics, those of us who believe in the political process, so often fail our constituents. We fail because we refuse too often to lead. So I'm reminded of that phrase from the 70s. If the people lead, the leaders will follow. So that's why you're so important to the resolution of this issue. Without you, nothing is going to happen that is good. With you, we can prevail in this important fight. There's so many slogans going around. For me, Fukushima was yet another SOS. And that SOS for us is clear. It's imperative that we understand that what transpired in Fukushima could just as easily have transpired here. There but for fortune go you and I. So, what does SOS mean? It's a signal for distress. In our case, I think it means we all have to rally under the banner of the safe, orderly shutdown of San Onofre. My remarks in the next few minutes are from the perspective I hold as a local elected official. Public officials are, of course, citizens, like every other citizen. But we hold a special position of responsibility to safeguard the public health and safety of our communities and our individuals. It's imperative that we be faithful to that commitment. With the responsibility for health and safety uppermost in my mind, my general anti-nuclear skepticism, my anti-nuclear commitment was, of course, profoundly affected by what happened in Fukushima. We have all lived through, certainly those of us who are in middle age, we've lived through 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. 3 Mile Island was said to us to be, well, that was a freak event. Nothing like that will happen again. And of course, they maintain that it did not explode. There was not a vast radioactive contamination field. And so we went about our way. Then, 1986, Chernobyl. Chernobyl exploded, the worst nuclear power accident in global history. we were told, well, that was the Russians, the old Soviet Union, a bunch of numbskulls who can build bombs and build nuclear power plants but can't safely operate them at all. Well, what have we learned since? The Japanese, very skilled, very concerned about the public health and safety. They built a power plant built to withstand a 7.0 earthquake, and what they experienced was a 9.0 earthquake. That's not 2 times as big or twice as big. That's 100 times as powerful as the most powerful earthquake that they expected. Set aside the tsunami for a minute. That power plant was destroyed and rendered a danger to human beings by virtue of the earthquake that happened. And there but for fortune go you or I. So what are the lessons that we have learned? I took some real time to think about what our experience with nuclear power has been. Commercial nuclear power is a dangerous business, pure and simple. It is too dangerous.
Yeah.
It is too dangerous, and it requires us to think about moving beyond nuclear power as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Those of us who have grown up in Southern California, how many of you lived here for 30, 40 years? There we are, lots and lots of folks. Has it been drilled into your head for decades that it is just a matter of time before Southern California experiences the big one, an 8.0 or larger earthquake, a huge earthquake that will cause hundreds of billions of dollars in damage and will cost the lives of thousands of people? Hasn't that been what we've been told and what every seismologist worth a reputation worth having has told us over and over again? Now that might be in 10 years, it might be in 20 years, it might be in 50 years or 100 years, but they say Southern California is long overdue. We're constantly surprised by earthquakes. We're surprised by the Northridge quake. We were surprised by the Whittier earthquake. We didn't even know there was a fault there. We believe the Newport-Inglewood fault can generate only a 6.7 or a 6.3. It may hold some surprises for us. The San Andreas fault, the most likely site, we're told, for an 8.0 or larger, is close enough to do all the damage necessary to create a catastrophic failure at San Onofre. That is a fact. That is a fact. And to hear talk about, well, we really need to do, Southern California, as Edison says, we need to do more earthquake studies. To study what? To discover that somehow this little part of this fractured, fault-ridden part of the planet is safe? Let's be smart about this. And let's require Edison and others to dispense with the studies and begin about the business of shutting down San Onofre as soon as possible. Let me speak for just a minute about what a catastrophic failure at San Onofre would mean to us. Whether the odds of that are 1 in 1,000, or as I believe much closer to 1 in 100 over the next 10 years, or even less. Whatever those odds are, the magnitude of the catastrophe is something that we have to contemplate. And I want to speak to you from the perspective of a local elected official who will tell you that a 50-mile radioactive contamination field, Irvine, the city of Irvine is just 22 miles from here, just 22 miles away, and is likely to be right in the middle of a radioactive contamination field, depending on which way the wind is blowing, the duration of the contamination, the rain, and the like. It could be all the way down to San Diego, to the Inland Empire, up to Long Beach, up to Los Angeles. We're talking about a 50-mile to a 100-mile, in the case of Chernobyl, 200 miles away. Very high levels of radioactive contamination that have rendered those places uninhabitable. So imagine a big earthquake, or imagine without an earthquake. A catastrophic failure of San Onofre. What do we have? Evacuations, not just of people 10 miles around. People 20 miles and 30 miles around are going to want to evacuate as well. We're going to try to persuade them, presumably, to shelter in place. You think we'll be very persuasive? I doubt it. Just think of what it means. We asked the question of our Director of Public Safety and our city manager, are we prepared to deal with a Fukushima-like radioactive contamination field, setting aside the question of a tsunami, just a failure of San Onofre, and a resultant contamination with radioactivity that would reach to and through Irvine and beyond. Are we able to deal with that? No. The response of our elected officials has been no. The response of our staff was an emphatic no. There is no way we could begin to cope with that public safety hazard. And this comes to you from an elected official who represents people in a city that 7 years in a row has been the safest city in the United States of America. Safe in terms of crime, but are we safe in terms of an environmental catastrophe of this character? No. But we have to get safe. Now I'm going to conclude my remarks with a little bit of a reflection on what may have been good luck. The fact that these steam generators that they recently installed have failed. The fact that they have failed and caused the shutdowns of reactors 2 and 3 gives us a chance to reflect for a moment on what we're doing here. It presents a grave challenge to us to get through this summer successfully without any nuclear power generation whatsoever. Are you ready for that challenge? All right. What it calls upon, and what we're going to be calling upon SCE to do, is to present to us May 8th at our Irvine City Council meeting that evening, present their plan for incentives, for instructions on conservation, so that we can be part of the solution, not just for this summer, but beyond. And while approvals and construction are underway for solar power in the Mojave Desert, enough solar power to be 4 times the megawattage of San Onofre when it's operating, we have a picture here of what's possible for a safe, reliable energy future free of our dependence upon dangerous nuclear power. We can do this. So the message needs to be, do not restart San Onofre this summer.
That's right.
Do not restart it ever. And then let's sit down with Southern California Edison and others and figure out an energy future that works for us and helps them work for us as we go forward. This is possible in the months immediately ahead. And to those who are still skeptical and say, oh no, we absolutely need nuclear power, we can't live without it. My belief is we can't live with it. We can't live with it. And if that sounds overly dramatic, I like to call people home to a very powerful thought, which is that there are only two places on the planet that were once inhabited by people and are now, through the introduction of human intervention, in this case the introduction of nuclear power, are uninhabitable. Think of that. Large chunks of our planet are uninhabitable for hundreds of years to come. If that doesn't humble you and ask you as a human being to think about what we're doing and to inspire you to have others think about what we're doing and use this summer as a summer of challenge, a summer of thought, a summer of reason, and a summer of commitment to a safer, more reliable energy future. If this doesn't do it, nothing will. I think we're ready. I hope you think we're ready too. Let's go forward. Thank you.
Just to let you know, California has been nuclear free for about 4 days. Both nuclear power plants in California are shut down. The one in Diablo Canyon was shut down by little spineless creatures. Now we've got spines, we can do better than they can, and we can shut it down. The radiation here today is normal, so we're all safe. But that may not be the case tomorrow. Again, who will not only speak, but take action to save our Earth for our children to come?
The battle belongs to all of us, and I'm very pleased that through the magic of Facebook, I made contact with somebody in Japan who very generously has provided lots of information for the podcast. I didn't know that she would be moving to Southern California, let alone that she would be arriving on April 24th, just in time for this demonstration. Kathy Iwani has been involved in fighting against the burning of radioactive rubble in Wakayama Prefecture, which is not that far away from Fukushima. She's here today to tell us what it's like on the ground in Japan. Kathy Iwani.
Thank you. Wow. That was beautiful, but very, very difficult to follow today. So just bear with me. Just straight off the boat from Japan, I brought my daughter, my 17-year-old daughter. Once again, my name is Kathy Iwani, and brought my 17-year-old daughter with me today, as well as my 12-year-old daughter. And I've spent 25 years in Japan, and I come today to speak to you solely from the position of a woman, a mother, and one who has had absolutely no real knowledge about the nuclear industry, no knowledge about what's going on with nuclear waste. I had no idea about any of this and was sort of propelled into the activist mode, as it were, from March 11th of last year. And so today, I guess my point I'm really honored to share with you, and what's really, really important is that I think there are so many of us, even today. I was very, very shocked to be approached before coming up here to the podium. Someone said, "What? You mean the reactors in Fukushima are still melting down?" And I said, "Well, yes, you know." So this is a situation, as our fabulous speaker just mentioned, that Fukushima will be inhabitable for generations. Although the government has called Sorry, yes, it's the jet lag, bear with me. Thank you. Fukushima will be uninhabitable for generations to come. And despite the fact that Prime Minister Noda has, come out publicly and said that this is a cold shutdown, he's actually opened preschools, opened elementary schools with very high, very dangerous radiation level contamination, calling people back to their homes under the auspices of cold shutdown. And after that was announced, you have a situation where there were dangerous high levels going as high as 110 degrees Celsius, which is very, very high. I'm so sorry, I'm in the metric system. I would venture to say that that's 200, it's very, very, very hot. It's nowhere near cold shutdown. So we also have Reactor 4. There are several reactors at Fukushima Daiichi reactor area. All 4 of them have been completely melting down. Reactor 4 pool is on the verge of, it's very, very frightening, and it's the reason that I got on an airplane 4 days ago and decided to get out of there. However, this event is ongoing. The government is trying to clean up, they call it decontamination, and they have huge budgets going into Fukushima and surrounding areas to decontaminate. They call this decontamination, and basically what it is cementing over any soil, any garden patches, anything that is Mother Earth, cementing that over, basically washing down cars, washing down streets, washing down homes with high pressure, super hot spray guns. And then this radioactive sludge basically just goes down the street to the next unsuspecting neighbor. And it's a situation that's very, very difficult, because as we know, as most of us know, nuclear waste or the byproducts of nuclear contamination, nuclear isotopes, can only be moved. They cannot be, there is no such thing as decontamination. And so with that in mind, I'd like to share just my story today, coming to you as a mother, sharing, my story mainly about what's going on in Japan, to fill you in on some food contamination issues, as well as the policy of spreading the radioactive debris that was a result of March 11th. Due to the earthquake, you had many things, many buildings, many manufacturing outlets just fall over. Then you had the terrible tsunami come and move it. A lot of that, as we know, went into the Pacific Ocean. And unfortunately, we will be here in the next couple months. We will find, as they found in Seattle, Washington, they're finding it now in the Hawaiian Islands, actual big chunks of debris, cars, things that were broken in the terrible tsunami events. They will be coming, this debris will be coming onto our shores. So it's not a Japanese event. This is a global event. We are now, as I speak, in some areas getting fallout from Fukushima. And at the very end of my story, I'd like to share some, simple things. What can we do? What can we do to protect our families? What can I do as a citizen living in California? What is my part in all of this? So anyway, basically, I lost my parents to cancer a long time ago, so I'm real sensitive. As soon as we had this meltdown in Fukushima, I was sitting, I think I was folding laundry, and my girls were home with me, and we don't watch much TV at all. And my husband said, wait, turn the TV on, because the local sirens went off. Mind you, I come from Wakayama Prefecture, the capital city of Wakayama Prefecture, called Wakayama City, 641 kilometers away from the Fukushima reactors. So to give you an idea, that would be, here we are in metrics again, I would venture to say that's about 380 miles from the reactors, something along those lines. And the local sirens went off. We live on the top of a mountain very close to my daughter's elementary school. I said, what's going on? And they were saying, oh, it's the earthquake. We had no sense of any earthquake where we are living. We are living in the southwest of the main island in Japan. It's called Kansai. So that's the southwest of the Honshu Island, if any of you are familiar with the archipelago of Japan. Anyway, and they said, we need to evacuate all the homes that are on sea level. Mind you, I live overlooking the ocean. And we need to get all of the children in the gym. In essence, they evacuated 500 families in my local town due to a tsunami warning. And we, just by the grace of God, we live on a mountain above the elementary school, and my children, were they in any danger, they would climb the mountain, and basically I'd probably have 400 kids in my backyard. So we were very, very lucky. There was no danger to our home from earthquake or tsunami because of our elevation. However, I just remember those days, and I remember watching TV, and you had all of these nuclear experts getting on, in front of the camera, and there's no danger, everything's fine, and that's always the message that we all get. There's no immediate danger, and then what kind of struck me in the following days, and in the days that followed March 11th, was the gap of information that was apparent. I'm very fortunate, having lived there so long and having had the opportunity to study the Japanese language. I'm able to read and write and speak both languages, English and Japanese. So. And it's not like me to go and do all this research, but what I did is I decided, I'm going to go online and I'm going to figure out what's going on, because there was no information. We just had a complete blackout in Japan. It was really bad. And lo and behold, there were grassroots groups on the West Coast. There was Helen Caldecott, there was Arnie Gunderson. Lots of people were coming forth and speaking on YouTube, and it was very, very heartening to at least get information in English. But what was so sad for me was that there was no information provided to us whatsoever in Japanese. And I said, honey, what are we going to do? Is this a meltdown? I looked at my husband, who is, by the way, still in Japan. So these terrible events are creating situations there, breaking up communities, breaking up families. It's a very emotional thing to have to leave your family just for the safety of your children when their food is contaminated and there's risk of internal radiation contamination. Your gut instinct is to get out. Well, someone has to pay the bills. Someone has to support this whole thing, and it's the reality is that my husband couldn't come with us at this moment. So he said, well, what we're going to do, honey, is we're going to go buy all the seaweed we can right now. So we basically just went and bought all of our nori. We bought all of our the necessities in the Japanese diet. And I'm pretty much, I would say 60 to 70% we eat Japanese food at home. So that was the beginning to my sort of propulsion into the movement, as it would be, as it were. And I think that because of this media blackout that still goes on in our mainstream media, TV, and regular newspaper, it's alive and well in Japan. I think it's just so important that if we could just take away some personal story today and share it with someone, because it's you can get all the scientists together with all the peer reviews, but it doesn't mean a thing until you hear about the agony of these kids who are being overlooked in the Fukushima area. They have little mobile Geiger counters attached to their school uniforms because they don't live in the 20 or 30 kilometer radius. They are told to stay there and go to school in these terribly high radiation contaminated environments that claim to have been decontaminated, but it's basically moved to one part of the school property and buried a meter below. So in the next rain, the next typhoon you have, it's just all going to come up. This is still going on, and these are the things that I think we as intelligent, caring, loving mothers and families really need to keep in mind for our children. And speaking as a woman, it's just, this thing is, I don't know where this thing came from, because I am not an activist. And personally, I'm not a public speaker, so bear with me today. Okay, let's see. One thing to understand about Japan, I come from, it's just a gorgeous culture. It's beautiful. There's a respect alive in that culture that I think that Americans could learn a lot from. A respect for the elderly, a respect for the people that have done their time, the elderly, the high-level officials, etc. However, it's also a culture that sticks to its traditions, and it's a very, it's a double-edged sword. It's a beautiful tradition, but it's one of reserve, so you don't speak out. It's a culture of compliance. So when you're told to do something in school, you do it. You do not raise your hand and say, well, why are we doing this? You do not have debate. You don't question your teachers. You don't question authority. And so I think part of the lack of everything going on in Japan is due to this beautiful yet terrible double-edged sword in the culture. And so I'm here to sort of, if you can, at the very end, there are a couple petitions that I'd like you to keep in mind to help the locals who are suffering in Japan. Okay, so basically for me, as of March, or as of April of last year, it became apparent that our food supply in Japan would be in many different ways contaminated. And so I went to my local elementary school board, the same school that I worked at for 10 years as an English teacher, fabulous rapport with the school, and I approached the principal as well as my daughter's homeroom teacher, and I said, you know, I hope you're okay with this, but I don't feel good. After researching what's going into the school lunches, I don't feel good having my child partake in the school lunches. And a lot of that was about, they said it's safe. The Monbusho is the Ministry of Education, and what they say is law, and no matter what anyone questions, it is safe. So you eat what is provided, and if you don't eat, you're a traitor, and it's just the children are bullied, in some cases bullied, in some cases not. But I didn't want that for my children, but I wanted to assure their safety, so I made them a lunch every day. And the principal said, well, Mrs. Iwane, I respect your opinion, however, please do not share your research with any of the other mothers on the PTA, because it will create panic among, unnecessary panic, and we have parents that work very, very hard from the morning. They don't have time to make a lunch for their kids. And I said, well, wow. I said, I can't discuss my research with my friends. And he said, no, I would appreciate if you didn't do it. And I thought right then and there, it was sort of a knife in the heart, because I thought if I can't share my research with my good friends, it's going to put my children in jeopardy. It's going to put my own, how would you say, I felt very, very uncomfortable continuing to live in this culture that was repressing the truth. So anyway, we went on under the auspices of my daughter having an allergy, and she, my daughter and I now, we laugh about it, and she says, oh, Mommy, it's just an allergy to radiation. We're okay, we're okay. So that's sort of how that went on for a good year. And to sort of tie into the same sense of repression, I have a very good friend who actually evacuated to my prefecture. Mind you, I live in the southwest of Japan. It's a place that people evacuate to. And this woman evacuated from the outskirts of Fukushima, very good friend, Nita-san. And we connected and we became friends, and she's actually planning her evacuation from Japan now. But I'd like you to know the gravity of the situation for me living so far away. I made friends with her, and there was a local, I'm a member of a local volunteer group that actually provides very, very cheap housing to evacuees from Tokyo and the Northeast, especially areas around Fukushima. Well, we became very good friends, and in the month before I left, so this was March of this year, she called me and she said, "Kathy, you're not going to believe this. I had to do this, but I had my children tested, had their urine tested for radioactive elements." This woman had evacuated the day after the meltdowns, March 12th, all the way to my prefecture. And she was assured that milk, anything local, would be completely safe. Well, lo and behold, she has 3 children, but didn't have enough money to apply for the test for everyone. And 2 of her 3 children, lo and behold, they had radioactive cesium-137 detected in their urine. And I have to say that she is a mother that allows her children to eat those, store-bought packaged snacks, the kind that kind of come from the factory. That I'm such a strict mommy. I'm like the granola organic mommy. My poor kids are just rolling their eyes right now because I never even let them have anything, So we're kind of a different way of running our, dietary rules and the way we eat. But these kids, they drank the milk every day, they ate the school lunches, they bought local meat, and they also ate that junk food, maybe McDonald's every now and then, that kind of stuff. So this is what's going on. I need to hurry it up. And then finally, this is a really, really important issue. And there's a policy in Japan, and that policy is we're going to take the rubble from the tsunami, from the earthquake that's left after the earthquake. It's been completely contaminated with terrible radioactive isotopes, and we're going to spread that all over Japan. And we're going to actually burn it in regular incinerators, and we're going to take the ash from the leftover rubble, and we're going to dump it in the ocean. This is Japan's way of dealing with the rubble, so that they believe if they can clean this rubble out of the area, people can move back and go back to their happy way of life. This is not going to happen. So anyway, in essence, this policy, right now, there are 12 locations in Japan. They are burning radioactive rubble in incinerators fit for regular garbage. And this is going on. There are filters that are just for regular garbage. It is in no way filtering any of the radioactive isotopes. So this insanity is something that is actually going on. This came to my city. We petitioned it forever. They are now questioning in my own city whether or not to burn it, and that's where we are, and we've escaped just in time. So finally, in closing, I just want to kind of, for all of us, what can we do? What can you do to protect yourself? It's up to us, of course, to end nuclear. We have to do what we can to end nuclear power. We have to. But what can we do today? We need to protect ourselves. Look at what you're eating. In San Francisco, near Berkeley, there is cesium in the milk. It's way above EPA levels. Look at what you're eating. These big fish come from Japan to California. Be careful. Join radiation networks. Find out your levels. Talk to Gene. He's got a fabulous network. We need to know what's going on in our own backyard. Look online for change.org. There are 2 petitions that are fabulous. One goes to Obama. It's written by Kimberly Robertson. We petition Obama, the House, the Senate. They need to know. Thank you for your time today.